A gem squeeze in the Veve market often happens when some big announcement comes or a Medium article drops for the next thing that's coming to the app. And for new investors or even for older ones, this can be quite a scary time as a lot of your collectibles go down in price fairly quickly. So today, I'm going to share with you what to pay attention to, how to take advantage of it, and some more. So let's get started. Welcome in everyone, my name is Andy and I appreciate you taking some time out your day to come and watch this video on the channel. Just before we get going, if you are enjoying the content and you want to support me further, you can hit that subscribe button, and if you want to support me even further than that, you can join the membership down below. Now, a gem squeeze may be something of a term that you may have not heard of, or you've just heard it in sort of the sphere of what Veve is, or even in OpenSea as well, as it can definitely happen. But what tends to happen is when a drop is announced or something comes out, people sell off their collectibles in order to get liquidity to actually be able to buy into this new drop that happens. So with the gem squeeze, people are selling off everything they can, undercutting each other time and time again, where the new floor actually establishes itself a fair bit lower to what it was sitting at the previous few days before this drop was actually announced. Gem squeezes can happen for other reasons, but this is the most common reason as to why it happens. Sometimes can happen weekly, especially if good drops are coming out time and time again, or there's some big news that hits the market in that week. Retractions and run-ups in the market are completely common. They're meant to happen, and it's a healthy way to actually organically grow. And this often occurs again due to the news that's going on, or people having time to actually decide what they're wanting in their vault and what they're wanting to hold for the long run. So maybe when we don't have a massive drop over a certain period of time, often people start to establish what they're willing to hold over the long term and what's their true blue chips in their eyes. And this is what we'd seen over the first few weeks in January, when we certainly saw quite a big run up in the collectibles that we had in our vaults. Some of us seen absolutely massive run ups in what we'd owned. And this was because people had more time to think about what they wanted to hold and maybe what was of value to them. We saw more people coming into this app, more gems being purchased, and therefore the run up occurs. Again, it seems like we're starting to run up to the bigger announcements that are going to be coming up with this year. The migration is happening in the next few days. We've got Minnie Mouse that was announced as something that's going to be dropping in the next maybe coming weeks. And this is when gem squeezes tend to occur. The retractions are normal, but gem squeezes are maybe more aggressive than some others and have certain reasons for them being the case. So what can we take from gem squeezes and what can we learn from them to actually help us become better as an investor in Veve and actually be smarter with what we do? Because usually over time we start to learn the market fluctuations and what we can actually take advantage of. And I'm going to give you a few different scenarios today of certain types of people, the advantages and disadvantages of them all, and maybe which one you should potentially fit under would make the most sense for you as we move forward. We've talked about the run up and what happens with that, and I always tend to tell people to take profits if they're wanting liquidity for something else in those times. However, living in that piece of euphoria, it can be quite hard to actually take those profits as you believe it could run up even further. Although that can be the case for some of them, most of the newer ones tend to take good retractions, especially after the run-ups happened, purely because they haven't had enough time to get a lot of people with diamond hands just keeping them. Now, it's not to say people selling are paper hands at all, and I don't really like using that phrase, but just in general, it's easier to understand someone who's willing to hold for the long run as a diamond hand rather than saying something else. The person that I'm going to be talking about when it comes to a gem squeeze is the person who sells off purely on the basis of being scared of what the prices could go to. Now, this is more likely the more common person, especially in the beginning, because they don't actually realize what a gem squeeze is or why anything is changing. Because there's no news article on the Veve app itself, the way for you to actually keep up with what's going on is by following them on Twitter, Medium, or on the Discord. Now, not everyone uses those, so actually understanding everything that's happening may just scare a lot of people. And this is where gem squeezes can hurt even more, because if the price continues to drive down further and further and further, people get more scared and more jittery about their investments and what they've actually purchased. Therefore, you see a lot of people sell off for a loss purely because the market is going down and they don't actually understand why the market is doing what it's doing. This is maybe why paying attention to what's going on the outer space of Veve and what maybe they're working on is the best thing for you to do as you start to realize the patterns that go on in these scenarios. And the second one is someone that I am sometimes as well, and probably something you can be at certain points. And this is to sell off at the low for specific reasons. Currently, I'm trying to sell a few things as I believe Minnie Mouse is going to be an amazing asset, especially being the FA of her in the NFT space. This is something I am really wanting to get, and I don't mind selling some things off a little bit lower than I could have a couple of days ago, purely because I actually have a plan for what I'm doing. The difference is I'm actually selling off for a reason, whereas some other people of what I've seen just sell off because they are scared of what the prices are doing. When you have a plan and when you have a reason for doing things, selling off at a lower point, maybe not the lowest, but still a low point to an extent, can be quite scary for a lot of people. However, that plan and staying convicted in what you're doing and the reasons behind it can help back up your point to why you're actually doing it and give you that purpose to continuously move forward with that, as you can maybe see yourself making more profit with the next investments that you're planning to make. Now, it's not to say that after things like mini happen, there's going to probably be a run up in the market as people buy into the things that they weren't able to get or did sell off previously. And that means the things that I sell now, I might not be able to get at the same price that I'd sold them at the low during the gem squeeze. However, if I did also manage to pick up the things I wanted to pick up because I sold early on, I've then bought into the things I've always wanted and therefore could potentially make good profit with that in the future moving forward. Now, I know that can be a little bit confusing to some people, but in the gist of things, it's basically selling off for a reason to buy into other things when they're at their low to then sell off or keep for the long run once things start to run up again. The third one is probably the one where people can make the most profit, but you really have to be strong with not buying into what is being released right away. And this is actually buying in at the low. Now, because gem squeezes happen quite regularly, especially when there's big drops, we've seen that with Disney, we've seen that with Marvel, we've even seen it here when things like Minnie Mouse was announced. This can cause a lot of people, as we said, to panic and to undercut each other quite drastically. We've saw dips of maybe 20 to 30% on some of the collectibles and comics, and this is the best time to actually buy in. If you're smart with what you're doing and you choose your investments wisely, you can make a massive profit only in a couple of weeks if you're willing to hold for that time, see the market solidify itself, and then start to take that run up again once people realize that they're missing out on maybe some of the grails or potential blue chips that they classify them as once the market starts to run again. I have been able to do this a few times where I've sort of timed the lower points of the market and not really worried about the next drops. I've more so focused on the things that people are no longer paying attention to because they're so focused on the drops. And once the drop is over and people want to buy back in, the collectibles can take a run up, you can sell off for a profit, and then actually buy into the collectibles that have just dropped that you now have the liquidity to do. Now, this can be more challenging as time in the market is near enough impossible as you can never really tell the lows or the highs, but you can just work your way at buying in at certain periods of time and certain price points that you're okay with buying in at, especially if they're taking a dip at that time. You're therefore going to be able to make a decent bit of profit and potentially buy into some other things you may have not been able to afford previously before the gem squeeze. And the final one, it should be the easiest one out of the all, but maybe some people have a harder time doing, and that's just to hold your collectibles. Just sit and relax and breathe because we sometimes don't actually look out at the bigger picture. You know, in the past we bought things for quite cheap and now they're really, really expensive, but in the week to week we might think they haven't actually changed that much or they're drastically decreasing in price. We've got to remember how early on we are in this period of time, especially as this Web3 era sort of develops itself further. And we have to understand to look out a little bit further and see that holding our collectibles may just be the best decision that we can make. There's always going to be market fluctuations, there's absolutely no doubt about that. You can never guess everything that's going to happen, and there's never going to be something that will just stay a steady line the rest of its life. Market fluctuations are completely normal and healthy for what's going on, and sometimes the best thing that you can just do is just hold off and wait and see what happens for whenever you're comfortable with doing so. Now, yes, you can have selling points and buying points and all that sort of stuff, but you are adding some form of emotional stress to yourself in the time you're taking away to actually watch these things than you would if you just sat back, relaxed, and watched your collectibles do what they do. This is probably one of the best mindsets that you can get, especially for the ones that you're willing to hold for years on end, if you can just relax when things go down. I've now sort of got to a point where collectibles go down in price, and especially if they drop 40 or 50% in a day, I really don't care anymore. It doesn't bother me that things shift in price and people are selling off, because at the end of the day, they probably have their own plan or are just doing it because of FOMO. If I have my plan, I'm convicted in it, then there's nothing to actually stop me from doing what I'm doing. I'm going to give you a little bit of an example of this to just show you what you could have done and what you can do in certain instances when you do things. Now, I bought about 9 Deadpools between the region of about 90 and 160 gems. I know at one point it was about 60 gems, but I just didn't buy any more at that point as I felt I'd had enough anyway. But Deadpool did run up to about 310 at one point during the big run up. Now, on January the 22nd, this was when we got the decision that Mini was going to be coming out in the next coming weeks. We're still getting more info and we're still waiting on that right now. So by that time when we got it on January 22nd, Deadpool had already sort of found its floor about 240, but after that announcement, I let him go all the way down to about 160. Now, a lot of people panic in that instance, and a lot of people are very, very scared with what's going on. They don't realise why things are dropping so drastically, so quickly, and therefore, if they decided to buy up at the 250 mark, they're now selling off for a near enough 100 gem loss, especially after tax. But now we've saw the market bounce back a little bit up to about 240, and it's set about 220 now. And I actually presume once we get the medium detail articles for Minnie Mouse, that price will most likely go down, probably run across the board for most of the other collectibles. This is why knowing exactly what's happening and maybe why things go on is going to give you the best understanding of the best decisions that you can actually make during a gem squeeze. For me, there's a lot of decisions that you can make, and there's a lot of other factors that you can take into play when it comes to this. You can decide to hold, sell, and all that sort of stuff, because it really is up to you. I just wanted to make this video to help you understand a little bit further what a gem squeeze actually is and how you can maybe take advantage of it even more. There's times to make profit in all different types of markets. It's just whether or not you're willing to take the time out of your day to actually learn those and maybe understand from your past failures to do so. I'm not going to be right every time, and neither are you, but that's just all a part of the game. Love for you to let me know down below what you think about this and whether or not you're someone who sells or just relaxes and holds. So be sure to let me know in the comments. I know the video on the screen right now will be something you'll love to watch. Have a fantastic day.